Have you ever noticed that when you have to do something, there's something inside of you that just doesn't want to do it? When I have to go to the dentist or clean the garage or file my taxes, there's just something inside. There's a little 2-year-old that says, I don't want to do it. But on the other hand, when you want to do something, it's not hard, it's easy. When you want to do something, it's a joy and a delight. Once there was a woman with 3 little kids and a husband who every Sunday faithfully got up and got them to church on time. She got up early and got started. She got breakfast ready, got the clothes out for the kids, got the kids up, got them fed, got herself ready, got her husband going, and got everybody out to the car and got them to church. But by the time she got there, she was frazzled and worn out. And then she still had to sing in the choir, and she had to teach Sunday school, and she had to help with the coffee hour. She said, I don't know why I'm doing this. The kids are always finding some excuse that they can't get ready, and my husband is always doing something, and it's just wearing me out to do all this. She said, why can't you kids get yourself in the car? She said to her husband, why can't you help the kids get in the car? Why do I have to do all this? Every Sunday, it was the same. And as time went on, she got more and more frustrated with Sunday mornings. She felt herself getting more and more angry. Get dressed, get in the car. Why do I have to tell you 3 times? It was this huge burden. And finally, one Sunday, she snapped. She says, all right, I give up. If you don't want to go to church, we won't go to church. We'll stay home if that's what you want. There's this silence in the house. Her husband disappeared somewhere. The kids went off to their rooms and played with their devices, and she had a peaceful morning. So from then on, Sunday mornings were easy. No more drama, no more fighting, no more yelling at the kids. She got up late on Sundays. She made a nice breakfast. She had coffee and read the New York Times, and everybody was happy. She did feel a little guilty about dropping her church commitments, but it didn't last long, and honestly, it was a big relief. And this went on for about a year, and then she began to feel like something was missing. She actually missed church. She missed God. So one morning she got up early and she let herself out of the house and she went to the early service at church, the 8 o'clock service. There was no music, no kids, short sermon. And when she got back home, she felt lighter. So most Sundays after that, she would do the same thing, get up early and go to the 8 o'clock service. Not every Sunday, but most Sundays. And she would come early and she would sit in the pew and just be quiet, just listen. And she would sort of let the service wash over her, all the readings and the prayers and the communion. And it began to work on her. And she began to feel like church was not something that she was doing, but church was something that God was doing inside her. So at that point, she realized that church had become a pleasure and a delight. It wasn't a burden anymore. In our gospel lesson today, Jesus says to the people who have gathered, "Come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly of heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. See, in Jesus' time, the Jewish religion had become very focused on the commandments of Moses. It was very important to keep all the commandments, to come to the temple, to pay the tithe, to wear the right clothes, to associate with the right people, to eat the right foods. And the requirements of the law were so great that it put this huge burden on people. In fact, if you were an ordinary person, you probably couldn't afford to do all that. Only someone with wealth could afford to follow all the commandments. The Pharisees especially were proud that they were able to do all this. They showed off their virtue and their righteousness, and they would even say, I'm taking the yoke of the law upon myself. The yoke being a symbol of obedience. You know, the yoke is what you put on an ox when you want to have them pull the plow or pull a cart. So if you put yourself in the yoke, you're binding yourself to do a heavy burden. But Jesus was speaking to the common people who couldn't do all that. And he said, come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. And I think what he meant was that religion is not meant to be a burden. It is not meant to be hard for you. It should be a pleasure and a delight. When I was a kid, we didn't have television, and so when I got bored, I would say to my mom, I don't have anything to do. And she'd say, well, find a book and start reading. And we had this bookshelf, and one of the shelves on it was children's books. Books like Treasure Island and Arabian Nights and The Jungle Book. And so one time, when I was bored, I picked out a book, Black Beauty. Well, Black Beauty is a story set in England in the 1890s or something, somewhere around there. And it's about a horse, a mare, named Black Beauty. And the story is told from the horse's point of view. It's the horse speaking in the story. And she says that she was born and raised in a beautiful country estate in the rural England, and the estate was called Birtwick. And she was born with this very distinctive star on her forehead. She was a black horse with a white star. And her owners were well off, and they treated her very well. They were very gentle with her. They introduced the bit and then the bridle slowly, and then taught her how to back into the shaft so she could she could pull the family carriage. And they were always easy on the reins, and they gave her pasture to graze in and the best grooming and foot care. And so she loved pulling the carriage on the country lanes, hearing the children laughing in the carriage. It was a joy and a delight to her. And so she was happy when she was a young mare. But then, unfortunately, the family fell on difficult financial circumstances, and they had to sell the estate and everything with it, including Black Beauty. At first, she was sold to a man who had a horse-drawn cab, and he would take paying passengers around the city, and so she had to work for her pay, and life was more difficult. But she adapted to it and did the best she could. But then she was sold again, and then she was sold again. And she ended up in London working for a huge company that had many horse-drawn cabs. And the cab drivers were not gentle. They were rough men, they had hard work to do, and they treated their horses roughly. And Black Beauty saw many of her friends fall in the harness, and sometimes get hauled off for the slaughterhouse. And so her life was very hard, very difficult, and she became gaunt and thin, and so finally she was put up for sale to get rid of her. At the sale, it happened that the very family who had the Birtwick estate had come to the sale. And they had another change of fortune, and they were able to buy another estate. Not as nice as the Birtwick estate, but still nice country estate. And when they were at the sale, one of the children, who was now 5 years older, said, "Look, that's Black Beauty." And her father said, "Oh, no, it couldn't be. Not in London, so far away from where we raised her." And the other child said, "Oh, it must be Black Beauty, because look, it's the exact same star on her forehead." And so they came over to Black Beauty, and she nickered at them, and they knew that that was the same Black Beauty that they had had earlier. So they bought her as soon as they could and brought her back to their estate. When they got her home, they had the vet come and take care of her wounds and her feet. They took care of her coat. They gave her the best diet. They let her rest and get stronger. And when she was healthy again, they hitched her up to the family carriage. And she felt the pull of the shafts, and she leaned into the work. And just like in the old days, she felt the carriage behind her and the laughter of the children. And her heart was happy once more. So to pull her family around those country roads was for her not a burden, but it was a joy and a delight. Or to say it another way, her yoke was easy and her burden was light. You know, it seems to me that maybe our lives are somewhat like Black Beauty's life. When we're kids, we don't have a care in the world because our parents take care of everything. And then as life goes on, we get piled on with more and more burdens, grades, college, a job, family, career, mortgage. It's just one thing after another. But at some point, hopefully, we learn that magic power of saying no. And we stop doing the things that we don't want to do. And we begin to relieve ourselves from some of those burdens. And then we learn the power of saying that word yes. We begin to take on the things that we really want to do, the things that give us joy and delight. We learn how to say yes. Yes to ourselves. Yes to life. Yes to God. Jesus didn't promise us that we wouldn't have any yoke or any burden at all. But he did say his yoke was easy and his burden was light.